Hello, and welcome to the symplr Education Series webcast. Today's webcast is titled MSP Career Development Through Automation with speaker Donna Goestenkors. At the end of this session, we will have time for a formal Q&A, but feel free to ask any questions as they come to mind via the chat box located on the right side of your screen. You will also be able to download the archive of today's webcast and its slides at symplr.com soon, and will receive download information in an email. This Continuing Education Series Certified symplr webcast is sponsored by symplr, Team Med Global, Cactus Software from symplr, and Medical Service Professional. This month's speaker is Donna Goestenkors, and I'm sure many of you know her, and I'd love to turn it over to her now.
Wonderful. And I want to apologize right off the bat to all of our listeners. We were a couple minutes late in joining, and you know, it's the world of technology, and here our program is about automating our process, but we're all human, and sometimes you just try to work with what we have. Callie's going to be advancing the slides because for some reason I'm not able to, but again, that's always so good about having our backup people. I want to welcome everyone, and again, it is my pleasure to bring part 2 of our MSP Rockstar series, which will describe for you how to automate specific functions you may be performing in your departments so you can get noticed in a good way. As Callie had mentioned, and Callie, if you could go back one slide, please. Your educational sponsorship partners for this event have expanded since our last session, and I'm happy to recognize the affiliation between two leading credentialing and provider enrollment organizations, Cactus and symplr. I'm sure that most of you have heard of these long-standing and very successful companies before, and the impact that their products have made to our industry. So I'm so proud to be sharing the webcast stage with these high caliber and performing organizations. And besides, it's the perfect fit because your interest in participating in this series proves that you too are high performers. And truly, your desire to learn and always pushing yourselves to do better never ceases to impress me. Next slide, Callie. As Callie introduced me, I'm Donna Goestenkors. Hi, everyone. That's me on the screen. And I've been providing industry education via the symplr and Cactus webcast series during the past 2.5 years. And sincerely, the topics my team and I bring forward are ideas that come directly from you, our listeners. The how-to topics addressed in today's program were selected specifically because of the volume of requests I get when I'm in the field. So from your lips to my ears, here we are, ready to learn. Next. What rockstar ideas will we cover in today's session? Well, I'm going to refresh your memory about the MSP core competencies and how automation can be incorporated into absolutely every facet of the work that we do. Next, I'm also have selected 2 of the most frequently requested work processes that many of us are responsible for managing, and I will offer for you industry field tips on integrating automation into these daily practices. And then I'm going to introduce you to that gold triangle of excellence where you too can become an MSP rockstar. Next. So let's prepare our minds to think about new ways we can use technology to automate our project processes. Next. Let's look at this formula, this competency formula. I developed this after much study, after working in the field for over 30-some years, and I've been using this for the past 12 years to demonstrate to our colleagues, our MSP colleagues, as well as healthcare administrators, that we can truly measure our level of competence. I introduced this during last month's webcast, but it's really important that I reinforce this because it's truly painting this MSP thread for you to be following. So as you look at the screen, the knowledge that we acquire through our academics, through our ongoing learning, and really our on-the-job experiences, plus the skills that we practice every day, and our ability to demonstrate our knowledge and our skills really delineates a measurement on how competent we are in performing our work. Now let's look at the model for MSPs. Next slide, please. As you can see from the screen, we have 3 interlocking columns. Each of them on their own is important, but the power that they have connected and dependent upon one another is really the message that I'm conveying to you, my listeners. So how effective we are in our personal interactions, how we're able to lead and develop teams, how we resolve any conflicts that might exist, and how we really get along with others really delineates for our administrators, our bosses, and our medical staff leaders how effective we really are in interacting with others on a day-to-day basis. And then the middle column is defining all of the skills that we have to do in our jobs every day and how efficiently we're able to practice those skills. One is as important as the other, but the 2 of those columns combined really equates to how powerful you as an MSP or a healthcare professional will be in your ability to market yourself, to make yourself available for promotions or other opportunities. So collectively, these links and this column and graphic really depicts all of the things that you currently possess in varying degrees. But let's drill down on that a little bit further as we move into this program. Next slide, Callie. When we drill down into the efficiencies on how we perform our skills, the 3 areas of competence that we're going to be touching on in today's program is meeting management, document management, and how we incorporate technology into those 2 practices. Now, as you see on the screen, those that are in white font, those are all of the other core competencies that I encounter with MSPs and work in helping MSPs, but the 2 most frequently asked areas pertain to meeting management and document management. Next slide. So let's think about automation strategies as we move into, and I'm going to provide to you very specific drill downs on both of those 2 functions. But before you contemplate integrating technology into any of your practices, you have to recognize your stakeholders. What people are going to be involved in actually carrying out the process, and those that are going to be impacted by the receipt of information that will come to them perhaps in a different way. So understand who the stakeholders are before you begin to significantly integrate any forms of technology or automating your process. Which leads us, as you see that dotted line, it leads you into the process. Once you understand who your stakeholders are, you really want to specify in detail what that new process will look like. And charting it, creating a workflow chart might be helpful for some of you. Sometimes others work better just in a step-by-step written out process. So whatever works best for you, how your mind is able to absorb that process information the best, that's the approach initially that you're wanting to take. So we've covered our stakeholders, then we've delineated what our process is going to look like and what the ultimate goal is that you're wanting to achieve. That will be part of what you're delineating in your process. And then you want to really look at it globally. What forms of automation can I incorporate into my process to achieve the goal that I'm seeking? Next slide. The next slide also is a graphic because in preparation for this program, I really thought it was important to provide those key words on really what automation and how we analyze the automation and its effectiveness really plays into our process. So we're looking at that workflow, and that is our process. That center dot is the process that we've delineated. We've already determined that we're going to automate that process through the use of technologies, available technologies, and for some of you, it may be brand new technologies. But every time you begin a process, you indeed want to monitor it. Is it hitting all of my markers? Am I accomplishing the goal that I hope to achieve? Or do I recognize it's more of a progression of working towards that goal? We would all like to be able to identify something that we want to achieve and be able to turn on a switch and, hey, it's all working the way we want. But we know just realistically, and using the startup of this webinar is a perfect example. Callie and I were relying on the technology, that modality that we had available, but we have to be patient and improvise when something doesn't go exactly as we hope. So as part of that monitoring, am I meeting my markers? We have to analyze what do I need to do in order to adjust our process. So with that, I'm going to ask Callie to move on to the next slide. And this next slide really tells it all. When I'm hired by administrators, by medical staff directors, by managed care organizations or CVOs, and they ask me to do an assessment of a department's effectiveness, of the competence, and evaluate the competence of the players or the employees in that particular department. One of the things that I always try to guide my assessments towards is look for those more immediate successes. What can we do that's going to maximize the results, get the greatest point of attention, and do it in a way that is least disruptive to the players or to the stakeholders involved. So I always recommend to go after initially low-hanging fruit, those things that you can implement without too much effort and really maximize your return on the investment. Next slide. So based upon that low-hanging fruit, based upon the many requests that I get from our colleagues about where should I start, Donna, The example that I'm going to really walk you through is meeting management. Now, some of you, I recognize, may not be responsible for the meetings or recording medical staff meetings or credentialing meetings within your organizations, but you can use this concept for any other functions that you choose, but to truly stay on target with the description of what this program was going to be. I wanted to make sure that I hit the volume of requests based upon our colleagues. And as I said, that low-hanging fruit would be meeting management. So how do we manage meetings from an electronic standpoint? Next slide, Pete, please. It starts with our meeting notice. And I'm in the field, and I see all different ways that meeting notices are being managed by our colleagues. We might start off every year with developing a master calendar. And I know some of my colleagues are doing a monthly meeting notice as well. Callie, if you could please advance the bullet points. So we're talking about a master calendar. So many people start off with a Word-produced master calendar that they electronically send out to all of the medical staff members saying, okay, if you're appointed to a committee or a department, this is the master calendar of when these events should be occurring during the year. And again, as I mentioned, I'm still seeing individuals, and there's no right or wrong. I'm trying to provide to you what I see out in the field as a best practice. So there may be individuals who are still sending out monthly meeting calendars. If that works for you, that's cool. Let's make sure, though, we're using technology to distribute that monthly calendar. And as a best practice, what I see, and I get a lot of feedback from practitioners, is that they really like to get a reminder, like 2 weeks out from the meeting, just to kind of make sure, hey, I do have that on my calendar, and yes, I do plan to attend that. So they do like to get that 2-week reminder. So the methodology on how the frequency of how you're going to be communicating meeting activity to your stakeholders, that truly is your call. But whatever option you select, please make sure that you're using technology in order to communicate what that information is. It's still fine if you choose to post a calendar on, perhaps you have a medical staff meeting communication board. But think, is there a way that I can generate that master calendar electronically? Is there a way I can generate that monthly calendar, perhaps off of your Outlook calendar, or having a separate calendar specifically for your medical staff services department? So are there ways that you can incorporate technologies into that meeting notice process? Next slide, please. Once we take care of the meeting notice, let's really look at the agenda and the preparation of that agenda. What I recommend to all of my clients is, I know that there is a long-standing history, primarily in medical staff services departments, that the agenda has to look a certain way. And I'm not standing before you in this virtual world dictating to you what that format should look like, because I have learned over these many years that it oftentimes is an organizational dictate on what that agenda format is going to look like. It may be a medical staff preference, or it may be a preference by the MSP who's directing that department. But whatever template, whatever agenda format you choose to use, design it in a way that it can become a template. For every meeting, basically, that you have, there are always going to be these nuances, but create it as much of a standardized version as possible. You're going to want to add components to that agenda. You're going to be building your agenda based upon follow-ups that were required from that previous meeting. You're going to also be collecting those agenda items from other medical staff, administrative bodies, department meetings, where they're referring it to a specific group. So you'll want to make sure those referred items are part of your built agenda. And then there might be items perhaps you send when you're sending out your meeting notice about a particular meeting. You're also asking the members of that particular committee or department to provide any suggested agenda items by a deadline date. So as you're building that agenda, you want to make sure those are the three basic areas or ways in which agenda items are collected. And then once you've built that agenda based upon your collected items using the template that you're trying to standardize for all of your meetings, then you're going to want to distribute that agenda and the resource material 1 week prior to meeting. That is a best practice. I know when I go out in the field, there are some people who are sending meeting information out maybe the day before. Could be because of our workload. Could be because you don't get the feedback from the various folks in enough lead time. But the feedback that I get from administration as well as medical staff leaders is they truly prefer to have a 1 week's lead time so they can be digesting and contemplating the items that are on that agenda, do their necessary homework, and then come to the meeting prepared. So describing to you what that best practice is, you have to look again at your internal processes and decide what adjustments can I make in order to meet that goal. If you are consistently not getting the feedback that you need in order to make that 1 week lead time, that's when you go to your departmental or your committee chair, describe about the barrier that you're getting or you're not getting the response to your requests, and ask them with their approval if you can prepare that agenda without those last-minute documents. If you can garner that medical staff leader's support, the people who are consistently or habitually late in getting you their materials, and they will have to bring their own copies to the meeting, or they will be less prepared for a meeting, that behavior tends to improve on its own. You know your cultures better than I. I'm painting this picture of what is best practice. All of these things, the agenda that you're creating, how you're collecting these items, and how you're going to distribute your agenda should all be done electronically. Keeping electronic files of all of your committees, an electronic folder for any collected agenda items, so when you get ready to build your agendas, you merely open up that electronic folder, and it's much easier to build an agenda from one source as opposed to multiple sources. Let's go to the next screen, and I'm going to show you several visuals, okay, on how agendas can be transferred or distributed electronically to your various members. So the slide, Callie, are you seeing the slide program?
Yes, ma'am, I am. I right now have the agenda slide up that has multiple folders, the multiple folder graphic on it.
Okay, I don't see that on my screen, so I'm going to let you continue on, and please just do the best that you can to follow along with me, okay?
Yes,
You're
ma'am,
doing
not
a
a problem.
yeah, you're doing a good job so far. All
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
so the screen that you see before you then shows this visual. So as you're distributing your agenda materials, you're wanting to send them electronically. That's an option. By email, including your attachments in that email. So it might be a copy of the meeting notice, a copy of the agenda, and any other supporting documents that would be discussed during that particular meeting. That's one option. Probably that's the most popular and the most frequent options that I see in the field. Next screen, please. Another option would be to have a shared file where you would actually, in your organization's internet sources, you would be able to create a general file that all of the committee and department members could be given access to retrieve past minutes, the current agenda, the current set of many other resource documents. Next slide, please. So the next visual is really kind of the snapshot of what that shared file looks like. So you would be creating that folder that has all of the upcoming meeting information in it, and you can direct all of your committee members, just as you see here. You can direct them to that folder through that shared site. Or next slide, please. You can provide them the link that they would be able to have access to, they would click that link on. It would be part of their email communication reminding them of the meeting, that please click on this link, and it will immediately open for that committee member or department member all of the resource materials that they would need for that upcoming meeting. Next slide, please. So we talked about the meeting notice, and we talked about the agenda and how we use various forms of technology for that reason. But let's talk about format. And this is probably, again, one of the more frequent questions I get when we're talking about meeting management. And remember, making modifications in how you're managing meetings is low fruit, usually low effort, but a high return on the rewards. So when we look at the agenda format, next screen please, the primary things, and these are baseline things, your agenda content, again, may look different. I'm providing you what the general agenda content should be. So within the body of that agenda, you want to name the facility that you're representing. I know some people who work in medical staff services will also identify medical staff services department as part of their organization's ID information. You're going to want to name the meeting that's being represented on that agenda, the date that that meeting is going to take place, where the meeting is going to be held, and on many agendas, I am seeing more than I used to see, and I don't want to say it's a trend, but more times than not, now agendas are including all of the members with little boxes where individuals can actually, meaning MSPs, can actually make a check mark of who's present at that particular meeting. So again, the agenda format would include those present, those excused, if that's a requirement in your bylaws. Those that would be absent, of course, would not be checked off as present. And also on the agenda is recorded what constitutes a quorum for that particular meeting, as opposed to waiting for an action or a motion to be made and then the chair asking, well, how many do we really need to make this a valid recommendation? So having that information documented as part of your agenda format, I am seeing those techniques applied more consistently than I used to. And also as part of that agenda formats, delineating the guests that have been invited to that particular meeting. And that again helps those members understand that there is a formality on who's going to be at that meeting. It's not just going to be the regular committee or department members. And knowing that the feedback that I get from doctors is if they know that, then they make a point, a stronger point to be there on time. All right, next slide, please. Let's also look at the agenda format continuing. Now, this is where the meat of the agenda really takes hold. And again, yours may look different, but these are baseline components to an agenda. Go back and look at your agendas and see if they follow this pattern. Do we need to make tweaks to what your current agendas look like? So you want to definitely have a call to order. Now, I know that many agendas will say old business or new business. If you're comfortable with that format, that's cool. I can tell you what I'm seeing happening more and more when I'm out in the field is they will have a category called follow-up business. So rather than having the term old business, the contemporary practice is, well, if it's old business, then it's a follow-up item from something. So they've specifically identified having a column or a category labeled follow-up business. Then consent items. And you can delineate, you can have sub-bullets under any of these elements, but having a label for consent agenda items. And then those that are standing reports, again, having sub-bullets under those standing reports. And then the term that in a sense is replacing new business would be other business. And we want to, as much as possible as the MSP, we want to be collecting anything that might be presented as a new topic to a meeting. So the chair is going to be prepared. We as the MSP are prepared. Maybe we need to pull another policy or bring another resource document to that particular meeting. So the more information we can get about items that folks are considering to present at that meeting, the better. And once you establish that practice of really clean electronic communication, you hold to the standard of how that committee or department is going to practice, the cooperation from the attendees of those meetings really becomes more of a rote and really a rote practice as opposed to having to deal with the unexpected. All right, so now we talked about meeting notice, agendas, but now let's really drill down into what electronically our minutes can look like. Next slide, please. So again, the graphic that I used on this particular slide says more of the same, because what I'm trying to reinforce here is that the template that you used in creating your agenda should become the same template that you're going to be recording your minutes. You simply have to change the label agenda to minutes, and as the discussions of the meeting occur, you can plug in what those conclusions were by that specific category. So creating that minutes template is going to really streamline your minute taking. It will also allow for consistency from product to product. When you design your agenda template electronically, you copy that template, you save it as your minutes, you open that document up at that meeting, change the heading to minutes, and you begin to document what discussions occurred at that meeting. So I'm saying here it should really shadow the agenda template. Of course, your minutes are going to say the name of the facility or perhaps the name of the department. Hello, that's what our agenda reflected. So why are we reinventing the wheel? Use as much template manner as possible. The name of the meeting, of course, that's a baseline expectation. You want to have that documented in your minutes. What the date of that meeting is, where the meeting was held, and again, who the members were. And the feedback that I get from the field and from our colleagues is, Donna, that's why I've created an attendance table on my agenda. So every meeting, I'm not having to type the same names over and over and over about who was there, who was present, who was excused, who was absent. All I simply have to do is make a check mark on my minutes when I'm transcribing them, and it's a done deal. So it streamlines, again, the transcription time. Next slide, please. Again, similar to the agenda format, I'm suggesting the same hold true on your minutes format. After each item that you list on your agenda, you do want to record who the responsible party will be to report on that particular item. So as an example, we go down, and if you could reveal all of the bullets and sub-bullets under this slide, please, Callie. You want to call to order. Well, usually the chair calls the meeting to order. Who's going to report on the follow-up business? Maybe there was a description that the revisions that were proposed at the previous meeting to a policy were going to be represented at the upcoming meeting. So we as the MSP were responsible for revising that policy. So our name should be associated with that particular agenda item. As you will see in your documents that are provided, I did make the required changes, and I've provided those electronically to you prior to meeting for your review. Did anyone have any other changes that they need to make? So those follow-up business items, there may be only one, but there may be several. So after each of those, identify who the reporting party will be. Under the consent items, usually, again, that would be the chair of the committee or the meeting. And then standing reports are usually individual reports. So you may have a report from the infectious disease area. So you're going to report whomever, maybe it's a service line lead, is going to be reporting on that. Or you may have the delinquency report. So the director of HIM is going to report on that area. Or you may have the credentialing performance report. So again, we as the MSP would be presenting statistics about what our turnaround time might be on applications, or how many red flags were missed during the past month's activity. So again, using that standing report section and individualize based upon who normally reports at that meeting. And then talking about other business. Again, there may not be any other business or new business for that particular meeting, but if there are, and if there are several, you want to make sure you identify who is going to be responsible for reporting on those particular areas. And lastly, the adjournment. And usually the chair is the one who calls for adjournment. Now, what I see, and these are variances in how I see minutes documented. And again, there's no right or wrong. Culturally, whatever is right for your medical staff or your administrative staff, but knowing what I'm seeing out in the field, you can evaluate, are there changes that I want to be making? So time allotment is an option that people include in their agendas. The signature of a chair, I personally recommend that when I'm working with clients. I've vetted this a number of times with medical staff attorneys. Every attorney that I've spoken with supports the verification of the minutes through signature by the chair. However, some organizations that I go into, they don't require a signature. I ask them, has that been a new practice? Has that been a directive by the medical staff or administration, or is that a corporate policy? Every time I ask the question, I can't get a specific answer. They say that's how we've always done it here. So if your minutes currently don't have a signature, that would be one of your follow-ups I'm asking you to do, is check to see if there is a hospital or a corporate policy that indicates a signature by the chair is not necessary. Or if you have a medical staff attorney, please direct your question to them. I can only tell you what I'm seeing in the field and what my conversations with medical staff attorneys have reflected. There are also some minutes where I see the name of the recorder, so oftentimes it's the MSP who's recording. Sometimes they'll put their initials, sometimes they will actually have a line that says recorder and then the person's name is there. Usually the recorder isn't what I see in the field. That there might be a name, but that recorder isn't expected to sign those minutes. So again, a couple of follow-ups for you to kind of test what your current practices are. But all of these things, again, by utilizing your available technologies in your minutes format, will certainly help streamline what your process will be. Next slide, please. So let's really talk about streamlining your meeting minutes. You know, and it is a misnomer, because those of us who are experienced and have been doing meeting minutes for many, many years, we know that it's an art form. We know the more minute taking we do, the better we get, the more honed in on the topics of discussion and how much more concise our documentation will be. But oftentimes minutes don't take minutes to transcribe. In some regard, they could take hours to do depending upon the complexity of that particular meeting. As a result of those real pain experiences that I have felt in taking minutes, I know that there's faster ways to do it, and I have statistics to prove that. So the slide that I'm hoping that you're seeing before you says recording. If you are currently not bringing a laptop or an iPad with a keyboard to your meetings, that is low-hanging fruit. Please do so immediately. It significantly improves the transcription times of your minutes. And as I described, if you have your minute format and your agenda formats already already prepared and uploaded on your computer, it's so much easier, again, to just plop in the conclusions or actions from those discussions. Next slide. So we just got done talking about how minute transcription can be made simpler and can be made less onerous for those of us who are responsible for that task. But let's look at how we can improve the experience for the attendee. So options, display options, and you're welcome to reveal all of those bullets, would be a laptop. and you can have your laptop that's hooked up to an LCD projector, and that projector displays on a screen. So the committee members or department members no longer have to have any hard copy material. Saves the organization on monies, and all of their attention then is diverted to the front of the room where the screen is. You display that agenda. You're able to pull up the necessary resource documents. Again, this is not something you want to do without really engaging your medical staff and making sure they're on board with it. But every organization who I know works with those types of display processes. The attendees really appreciate, as opposed to killing all these trees with this bulk of paper and the labor it takes us as the MSP in preparing all of the handouts. Now, some meetings, they're just because of the nature of the meeting, you need to have the hard copies, especially if we're talking about quality, performance improvement on a practitioner. We need to be able to refer back to particular case information or historical information, but that totally is your call. Another option is the display monitor. And I'm really loving that. It looks really cool in meeting rooms. It elevates the whole esteem of that body that's holding that meeting. The screen is much larger. The material that's projected from your laptop is much clearer to see. Understand, if you use that option, that's going to be the only workable options that I am aware of with your laptop. If you go to the next bullet, we're talking iPads and notebooks. I'm not aware of there being any feature, any connector source where anything on an iPad or a notebook can be displayed in that manner. So the laptop is the preferred source. All right, so we covered truly all of the technological features of our meeting management pieces. There's one last important feature about meeting management, and if you could go to the next screen, and we're talking about post-meeting. We as MSPs know that there's lots of work. Just when the meeting ends, it doesn't mean that our work is over. In many respects, a whole new series of work responsibilities begin. So we want to make sure we collect all of our meeting resources that we used at that meeting if we were handing out hard copies of things. We're going to want to destroy, delete, or forward any information that would be appropriate to do so. We want to make sure we do all of our follow-up work, and we want to do it in a way that we're using our technologies. If we need to prepare a letter to a particular physician, if we're needing to send a communication to administration, we want to be generating these things electronically. I also have been received reports from MSPs where they're actually doing their follow-up correspondence during the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, that committee chair can review, provide their electronic signature, or say, hey, print that out and I'll be by to sign it. So again, the more efficient we can make this process, the more satisfied our medical staff or administrative leaders will be. It also allows us, because we've used that template, agenda, meeting template, it allows us as the MSP to be able to edit those minutes in a much more expeditious manner. And then forward to our chair to review those minutes or provide their review and an electronic signature. Next slide, please. The last component for the post-meeting responsibilities is we want to be able to forward whatever you're using, the link, the attachments, to the members, letting them know that the minutes have been completed and they can review them, accessing this attachment or this particular link. You want to be able to make sure that your minutes that you created electronically are then stored in that electronic folder that your organization has backup. That is your security to make sure that should your computer go a bust, we still have the capabilities of accessing that information through that backup server that exists. So that would be one of the technology pieces that you're going to want to confirm before you try to activate these things. And the very last piece is just repeating the process. Continue to fine-tune what your electronic methodology is going to be in your meeting management functions, and just continue to repeat, fine-tune, implement. Repeat, fine-tune, and implement. And as my graphic says here, we don't want to make change just for change's sake. We want to make change because it's going to improve an experience, a product, or the work that's invested from the stakeholders. Next slide, please. So to close up the meeting management piece, it's really about leaving you with this message. Getting inspired, make a plan on what that technology implementations or incorporations will look like, and then take action on your plan so you can change the world. And by the world, I don't mean in the big operating world of our universe, but the world of your office, of your department, of your organization, because each of those pieces of influence will indeed change our industry. All right, next slide. And because of time, I'm going to go through these a bit quickly. But know as we progress, if you guys have specific questions, please jot them in the dialog box. At the end of the program, if we have time, we'll sure get to as many as possible. But if not, as always, I will answer any questions post-program. Send those to Callie, and she'll get those out to you with all of our meeting materials, the NAM CEU certificate, as well as my attendance certificate. So the second project that I get a lot of requests from our colleagues are pertain to document management. And if you could reveal those bullets, we're talking about requests that we receive or we're generating pertaining to peer references or affiliation verifications. Next slide, please. Everything that we do, we want to be creating an electronic record or file for requests or receipts of information that we're getting regarding verification of membership or employment. Also, requests that we receive or that we make regarding peer references. All of those can be done electronically. No longer is it necessary to type a Word document, print it, and place it in an envelope. There may be times that that's necessary depending upon the nature of what you're trying to retrieve or send, but as a general rule, using technology. And then any requests that we receive about malpractice information or those requests that we're making to an insurance carrier. So again, try to do as much of that as possible electronically. Next slide, please. All right, so we're talking about why we want to automate, and it's always to make things better, right? Better. How can we improve our process? Which will have, impact to the overall costs and how quickly we can do our work. So the benefits of technology, next slide please, and this is really the bottom line, why this is so important by way of our competencies. We want to optimize our efficiency and increase our productivity, our ability to put out more work because more demands are being placed on us. We want to be able to improve turnaround times using the examples that I gave today, meeting management, as well as requests that come our way. By systemizing those two steps, only those two steps, we're going to be reducing risk and inconsistencies. Next slide, please. So the benefits also with technology is we're going to reduce labor. We're not going to be spinning wheels. We're going to be doing things more electronically. We're going to have that carbon footprint, so we're not spending as much time on paper using toner and the efforts that it's taking us to put all of these things together. We're going to be increasing accountability and making sure that by using our technologies, we're further engaging our stakeholders. Next slide, please. And truly, the last slide really depicts for us the goal. I think that's the slide you're on. I'm sorry. Maybe it's on improving the audit process. It speeds correction, and it really helps. Okay, it really helps drive decisions. And then the next slide is really about that golden triangle of success. This is priceless. This is priceless. This is your golden nugget. The project that you are responsible for managing, the technology that you're able to implement into those projects, and the results that you get, that truly is the triangle of success that's going to revalidate your level of competence. So with that, I'm leaving you with this power thought. You can be the lead of change, even if you only take one or two suggestions on how we can technology into our processes. Just using the two that I provided as examples today, you truly can make a difference. So with that, I'm going to turn the program over to Callie so she can provide her comments about the services of symplr and Cactus, as well as offer any questions for those of you who'd like to stay on.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would like to remind everyone that up next we are having Ms. Donna back. She is going to talk about accelerating your credentialing career. It's happening on Wednesday, July 20th. It's happening at noon, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. You'll be able to register for it following this webcast on symplr.com. And now, a word from symplr. symplr has provider management solutions for your entire facility. It's easy to use and effective solutions to manage the complete life cycle of your provider. We offer provider credentialing, provider privileging, quality and performance improvement, and peer review. We have recently teamed up with Cactus, so we also have all of Cactus to offer as well. And I apologize that this slide does not reflect that due to our technical difficulties. I could not roll out the best for y'all, but also reach out to us if this is something that you would like more information on. You can reach out to us at sales@symplr.com for this information. I wanted to let everyone know this is Donna's speaker contact. If you wanted to get in touch with her to have her answer any questions post-webcast, in terms of your download information and your two attendance certificates, one from Donna and one from NAMS, you will be receiving those via 2 emails. So to ensure that you get both of them, please make sure to add communications@symplr.com. That is communications@symplr.com. All right, Ms. Donna, we have a couple of questions that rolled in due to time. We're probably only going to be able to answer 1 or 2.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get some that aren't super.
You know, I've never had to do a PowerPoint or a webcast without seeing my information on the screen. So, whoa, I don't think we did bad, girl.
Yes, ma'am. All right, let's see. The prior medical staff coordinator stopped sending out agenda and resource material prior to a meeting. She stated HIPAA and confidentiality concerns. What are your thoughts on that? Is that okay?
Again, I think that would warrant a conversation with your medical staff attorney or hospital policy. I know that there are secure access points within an organization, and I would check with your compliance area. I feel a little uncomfortable because the members of your committees and departments don't have access to any information ahead of time. So how do they know what's going to be discussed? Perhaps I misinterpreted that aspect of the question, but yes, I know that that has been a comment made, and I do get that in the field, but I refer people, just because something had changed, validate it. If you're new coming into the department, validate it and make sure that there aren't some modifications. Again, we're looking at trying to provide service to those people we're trying to support.
Thank you so much, ma'am. All right, let's see another one. In certain hospital cultures, the administration usually will not allow anyone besides those in the medical affairs office to access a shared drive. This is a great goal, but in reality probably wouldn't be allowed. What is your opinion?
I hear that. However, when I'm in the field, that is becoming a standard practice where people outside of administration have a shared drive, and specifically medical staff services departments have a shared drive. So using your medical staff, helping them understand what you're attempting to do. Technically, maybe they don't have the technical bandwidth to support such a thing. I can tell you, though, in the field, it's like a baseline expectation where departments have shared folders. So I wish you good luck in your pursuit. Utilize your medical staff to help influence change in that area.
All right, one more. Because my committee members do not always show up for these meetings, I do not send out the agenda or agenda items in advance. This practice helps with meeting attendance, and we are more likely to have a quorum to vote on agenda actions. What are your solutions of actual meeting attendance?
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't cover it in this particular program because it really is a whole program all on its own, but it's about virtual meetings. And the more electronic we can make our meetings, we can provide to the attendee various modalities on how they can access. So having quorums are an issue across the nation, but having virtual meetings where the same conduction of business would take place, but only done through our computers, whether you use Skype or whatever your organization might use by way of that, could be a conference call. So there are definitely ways that we can do virtual meetings. And sometimes they do it just electronically through email. If the action items are not sensitive in nature, meaning you're not taking action on a practitioner's clinical privileges or membership, but it's mainly idea sharing, policy sharing. Many times I'm seeing where people are doing that actually through email, and they're recording minutes saying that this was a virtual meeting. So all of the same patterns of practice would take place. It's just how you're documenting that meeting would be different.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. We do have a couple of questions that we aren't going to be able to get to today. I will be sending those to Donna for her to follow up with you outside of the webcast. Donna, is there anything you'd like to say in closing to our audience?
No, it was a great opportunity. It's another learning experience for me, doing it kind of blinded, and I look forward to you joining in for our next webcast, because specifically we're going to be addressing the many opportunities for credentialing specialists within our industry.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We would like to thank everyone for joining us as well. We would like to again apologize for the technical difficulties, but know that you will be able to download the slides and view this webcast on symplr.com soon. Hope you have a great day.